and welcome to this edition of Unrestricted Flavor. I'm your host, Mark Dirksing. We're going to do a series of episodes celebrating Mexican-inspired dishes for Cinco de Mayo. Today, we're going to start with my Mexican queso sauce. I will use this cheese sauce in many of my dishes that I will showcase in the next week. But essentially, when I got sick, one of the first things that I missed was Mexican food. More specifically, Taco Bell's chili cheese burrito with sour cream. That was not something I was willing to give up completely. Knowing that I couldn't go to the restaurant and get it, I had to be creative and come up with a recipe that kind of mimicked the flavor of Taco Bell or any other Mexican-inspired dish. So that's what I've done, and I've used some different spices and some different cheeses to kind of create the flavor that I've been missing so much. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we go. One of the toughest aspects of creating Mexican-inspired dishes is not being able to use onion, garlic, and tomato. So that became quite a challenge. But I have done a good job using the spices that I can use, the vegetables that I can use to kind of recreate dishes that are similar to the ones that I used to love. In another episode, I'll be doing salsa that doesn't have tomato or onions, and it tastes like salsa, so I'm pretty excited to share that. All right, so this is a very simple recipe. You're going to need some kind of a food processor or blender. I prefer this Magic Bullet to use. So it's a very simple recipe with just very few ingredients. We're going to start with 2/3 a cup of milk. And we're going to pour it into our blending cup. Then we are going to add our peppers. This is a mix of red and green peppers. Again, green peppers they do have FODMAPs. They are considered low FODMAP if you eat a small amount. I use this for flavoring. It adds this nice fresh green pepper flavor to this sauce. It has not bothered my stomach, but if it does bother your stomach, or if green peppers do bother your stomach, you can just omit them and use more of the red peppers. So we have 1/4 cup of each, red and green peppers. We're going to put that into our milk. Then I like to use fresh chives, so you can get these at your grocery store. I just get a bushel of them. This is about 5 ounces, which I believe comes out to be about 1/2 cup. But I will just cut these into and it doesn't have to be perfect because they are obviously going to be blended, but I just like to get the blending process started a little bit by cutting them up into smaller pieces. And there we have it. All right, now we're going to add our spices. So the first thing we're going to use is a tablespoon of cumin. Put that in there. And then we are going to use a teaspoon of paprika. Teaspoon of paprika. We are going to use 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then all right, a little bit of a secret ingredient. We're going to use 1/8 teaspoon of ground mustard. All right, so what I like to do at this point is I'm going to blend this up a little bit. Then we're going to add 1/2 cup of cottage cheese. right, get that all blended. And we're already working on a good nacho cheese color. All right, now we are going to add a half a cup of our cottage cheese. And I like to blend it a little more just to get it mixed up. And then lastly, we're adding our cheddar cheese. So I like to buy, Cracker Barrel makes a good cheddar cheese that's advertised as lactose free. I like to buy the blocks, I shred it myself. And like I said, we are just going to add as much cheddar cheese as will fit. And what I'll do is occasionally go in and blend it. It'll create some room, I'll add more cheese, and I just keep doing that until I have the desired consistency. It usually ends up being about 2 cups of cheddar cheese. All right. And I'll keep adding cheese, like I said, until I get the desired consistency. But we have our nacho cheese flavor. And then, like I said, I will use this recipe in many of the, or this cheese sauce in many of the recipes coming up in the next week or so for my Mexican-inspired dishes. As always, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Mark Dirksing. This has been Unrestricted Flavor. Like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate everyone. Hopefully these help, and happy Cinco de Mayo.